what would you get? I see in the chat we got a 16. So it would be a positive 16 because they're the same sign. We get a positive answer, right? Now, okay, keep that in mind. What if I threw this onto here? Now we're going to multiply by, we're going to take the same problem. So we have -8 times -2. And then we're going to multiply it by a positive 2. Is our final answer, is it going to be positive or negative? And I want you to message me in the chat. Is our final answer going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Message me into the chat. If we remember, -8 times -2 is going to give us a positive 16. And then we're going to multiply by positive 2. Because remember I said our brain only does 2 numbers at a time. Even though there's 3 numbers, only break it down every time to 2 numbers. So now we have a positive times a positive. And this gives us a positive 32. Right? Now, if we look at kind of the rule of trying to think about different signs is negative, same sign is positive, well, that doesn't necessarily work here. Because if we look with these 3 numbers, there's a negative, and a positive. So they're different signs. But that different and positive, again, works with 2 numbers. When we deal with more than 2 numbers, we have to think about just breaking things down into 2 numbers. And there's a rule I'm going to give you. There's going to be like hints I'll give you. So let's take a look at this one. What if I threw something like this at you? Let's go -2 times, so if you have a parentheses next to a number, it means multiplication. So -2 times -10 times, let's go -3. Okay. I want you to message me in the chat your final product. Is the final product here going to be positive or is it going to be negative? Message me in the chat. So if we take a look here, we have a negative times a negative. The negative times a negative is going to give us a positive. And in this case, we'll be dealing with a positive 20. And then we need to multiply by a -3. So we have a positive times a negative. Positive times a negative would give us a -60. Okay. So again, all of these had the same sign. If we use that same sign, different sign, we would think positive. But because, like I said, that only works with 2 integers, that leads us to a rule or something you're going to want to add into your notes. Right? So we're going to add this into your notes. So again, if you do not have your notes out, you might want to get them out. If you already have your notes out, you definitely want to add this. So if there is an even number of negatives, the product is the answer to a multiplication, will be positive. So an even number of negatives, the product will be positive. And if we have an odd number of negatives, the product will be negative. So add this. This is like an addendum to your notes or just an added part to your notes. So an even number of negatives, the product will be positive. An odd number of negatives, the product will be negative. What if, say, I have something like this? Oh, I need my drawing, not my eraser. Who knows how to say that? Who knows how to say this right here? Good. Letty put in the chat 4 squared. There's another way we can say this. What's the other way we could say this?
Wouldn't it be 4 to the second power?
Bingo. So 4 squared or 4 to the second power. Those are the same thing. Good. Okay. Does anybody know what this means? What is 4 to the second power or 4 squared? What does it mean? Good, Michaela. It means 4 times 4. And I'm using the dot for multiplication right now. It means we have 4 and we're multiplying it by itself 2 times. The exponent tells us how many times we're taking the number times itself. So 4 times 4 we know is 16. Boom. All right. What if I did this? 4, boom. How do I say this one?
4 to the third power.
4 to the third power, or there's another way. Is it 4 to the third power, or so 4 to the second power is 4 squared. What would be 4 to the third power? Does anybody remember? So this is 4 cubed. 4 cubed. All right. And if you just know 4 to the third power, that's fine. And this means 4 times 4 times 4. And we're not going to solve this. I just wanted to break down exponents for you. Yes, it would be 64 because we do 16 times 4. Good. And it would be 64. All right. So let's talk about the next thing. This is where things are going to get a little tricky and confusing. All right. So let's go with, what if I did something like this? -3 to the second power. I'm going to put up 2 scenarios here. If you remember, 4 squared means 4 times 4. Do you think it should be solved which way? Let me use a different color. So I want you to message me in the chat. Do you think it should be A or B? Let's talk about this. This -3 is inside the parentheses, meaning it wants this -3 squared. It wants to take everything inside this parentheses and multiply it by itself 2 times. So the correct answer for here would actually be A. This is telling me I want -3 times itself. So I want -3 times -3. So if we take -3 times -3, we would get a +9. Now keep that in mind. What if I did this? Do you think this would be A or B? And I want you to think about, do these 2 things look the same? Is there something different about them? The parentheses tell us we want -3 squared. So we want -3 times -3. What this is telling me, because there are no parentheses, the correct answer here is actually B. It's telling me I want 3 times 3, but one of my 3's is going to be negative. So this is the correct version of what we're going to do when you see something like this. So this actually would be -9. Okay. So the parentheses tell us to take the number inside the parentheses and multiply it by that exponent. The non-parentheses tell us just take the number by the exponent, and one of the numbers is going to have a negative. Right? All right, so let's do another crazy. What if I have -5 in parentheses to the third power? How would I write this out? How would I write this out? Good. It would be -5 times -5 times -5. So then we do two numbers at a time. -5 and -5 would give us a +25. Then times a -5. We have a positive times a negative, which would give us the -125. Okay. Let's do this tricky one here. -5 to the third power, there's no parentheses. How would I write out this one? But it's fine. Things are going to be a little fuzzy. And that's why I'm going to give you time to work so that you have questions.